The Lachey's are back for episode 6. Hi, my name is Lacey, and this is my recap of The Ultimatum, now streaming on Netflix. This episode is called The Changeover. This is where the trial marriages end, and everyone goes back to their original partners to try another trial marriage with their original partners for another 3 weeks before they decide and answer the ultimatum. At this dinner, the Lachey's come back and mediate how everybody's doing and how everybody's trial marriage went, how the separations went, and they kind of touch base with the 4 couples that have switched. Colby says that he has learned a lot with April, and April has learned to listen, and how April has turned into a mature woman during this experience. Meanwhile, Colby's original partner, Madeline, is rolling her eyes as hard as humanly possible. How do you know she's a woman? What does that even mean? And you take credit for this? Valid. But then April says to Madeline how much Colby adores her and how he wants to marry her. And it's very sweet. It's like, there's nothing really here. He loves you. Cool. They then talk to Jake and Ray. Jake says really positive things. They're really connecting. They're vague but good things. And Ray just kind of says, "Oh, it's great. It's good. It's good." She doesn't seem to want to get into it for whatever reason. And Zay, her original partner, calls BS on her, and he says, "You brought me here and I don't see any growth from you. Like, I have grown with Shanique in this trial marriage. She's a communicator. I've learned to listen. I've learned to stop for a second and hear the other person." But he didn't think that Ray has grown any in the situation, mainly because she didn't say much. She just says the trial marriage was great and it was fine, and that's pretty much it. Shanique, who was in a trial marriage with Zay, says that he's very sweet and loving and he's all in when he's in. And so everybody is pretty much positive in that Shanique and Zay's couple. They then talk to Madeline and Randall. Madeline says it was a great experience. Randall makes her feel heard. Randall feels like he was allowed to express his feelings, and he feels heard with Madeline more so than he did with Shanique. Shanique's not happy during the situation, during listening to this, which, makes sense. Shanique then breaks down and calls Madeline out for her comments, her multiple comments about how perfect Randall is during this trial marriage. And Shanique basically says, Randall's not perfect. He has his flaws. And Madeline says, yeah, he does. I mean, he could be better, And it's like, wait, what? And there's just like a little pylon of Randall like, wait, what? For like no reason. And I just find it funny that Shanique said, oh, I'm condemning you for calling him perfect. He's not perfect. And she's like, yeah, he's not perfect. And he's just sitting there listening to them say he's not perfect. And awkward. Shanique blames herself for bringing Randall here in the first place. And she kind of shrugs it off and is like, it is what it is. It's my fault for bringing him here in the first place. Colby then chimes up and says of Madeline and Randall's trial marriage that Randall wouldn't be able to handle Madeline because she's so aggressive, and he's implying that Randall is weak. I think this dinner was really just to stir some shit up and then send the couples back to their original partners and say, good luck, now deal with that. So now the couples go back to their original partners in another trial marriage for another 3 weeks. And then they have to decide the ultimatum.
Are you really asking?
Loaded question. So we're back with our original couples, and our first one is Zay and Ray. Ray tells Zay how she's kind of upset about the whole boner situation that she heard from Shanique about Zay. Zay just kind of laughs it off and is like, I'm a dude, what do you want from me? It kind of happens. I can't control that. She is done with the conversation and she says, I'm going to bed. And he gets upset because she's on his side of the bed. And she's like, wait, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, move. And it was like a really weird, awkward edit. And I thought he was like legit upset and I thought there was gonna be a fight, but they ended up cuddling, so I don't know. And while they're cuddling, she jokes, oh, are you gonna get a boner? Later, Zay finds in their apartment, he finds a box full of sex toys. I'm not sure where this comes in. I'm not sure when this was used. It was not shown, but he finds a box of like handcuffs, feathers, etc. And he says, Zay asks Ray if there's anything he should know, and she's like, I'm just gonna put this somewhere else. Then Ray and Zay go on a brunch date with Ray's mother and friend, who then proceed to question Zay about what he learned in the trial marriage with Shanique. He says he learned to listen and she challenged him and he's a better person for it. But he also gets mad that Ray and Jake apparently never fought during their trial marriage, and he doesn't like that Ray is comparing the two relationships when one has been 3 weeks and one has been over years. So he's upset that they didn't argue. She tries to interject and say something, and he gets upset that she cuts him off. Ray says, legitimately, I want to be heard. And Zay, his response is that a deal breaker to be heard? And it's like, that's kind of the basis of any relationship, is to be heard. So yeah, it's a non-negotiable. The fuck? Ray's mom tries to mediate the whole situation and she asks Zay, hey, you have to listen. Why does she cut you off? She cuts you off because you talk too much and because you don't listen. So Zay asks Ray, he asks his significant other, when do you not feel heard? And she basically says, all the time. All the time. So Zay gets upset and he ends up crying and being emotional, and that's totally fine. Because somebody he cares about does not feel heard and he doesn't want her to feel that way. After the changeover, Shanique and Randall are back together. So Shanique and Randall, Shanique says, you went all in, I want you to go all in whether it's with me or not. She also asks Randall what she could do better in general for him. And he says, I don't want to focus on the negative. So let's just see how this situation goes. In this trial marriage with the two original people. He's sleeping. Shanique then tells Randall she grew in the relationship with Zay and that she's ready to marry Randall, and she doesn't want to have to convince Randall to want to marry her. She wants him to want to marry her. He doesn't really have a good answer for her. He says, I don't know where this is going, so let's just see. Let's just play this out. It's 3 weeks. Let's see how this goes. And honestly, that's the end of Shanique and Randall for this episode. Couple number 3, April and Jake. April is over the moon that they're back together. Jake, however, is immediately standoffish. Like, you can tell that he is not pleased to be back with April. For whatever reason, he's standoffish. He's very, just kind of like hangry, but not, just like that irritable kind of situation going on. And it's like, oh, this is gonna implode. Jake asks April if there's anything that she wants to tell him before they start talking. She says, no, I'm not sure where this is going. Then Jake proceeds to bring up April's Instagram and how there are so many people commenting and she's out with these other people during their trial, their 3-week separation, trial marriage. And Jake feels humiliated that she's going out and partying, I guess, without him and posting on Instagram. But meanwhile, he's having a really intimate relationship with Ray, so it seems a bit disjointed, a little sketch. She admits to flirting with a guy or two or whatever at during their 3-week trial marriage apart, and she's like, so what? I flirted, it felt good, whatever, we exchanged information, nothing came of it. And meanwhile, Jake is having like a real intimate relationship with Ray, so it's kind of like it seems a bit one-sided. Jake accuses April of never listening to him, and they're heated, and it gets in a kind of a fight, a heated argument, and she essentially says, fine, then get out of my apartment. He said, I'd love to if I could. The next day, Jake comes in and apologizes to April. He says, I'm sorry for acting the way I did. Let's give this the best shot. I do love you. I do care about you. So let's give this trial marriage a shot. And April agrees, and it's go time. April and Jake go on a date, and we see them at a picnic bench, and April is hugging and kind of wrapped around Jake, and Jake seems very like, I don't feel comfortable with this, but I'm gonna go along with it because I'm giving it my all. So he just kind of seems very standoffish and still very irritable, but he's trying. At least he says he's trying, and what he says is trying, I guess. The next time we see them, it's April's birthday, and April wakes up and talks to Jake, and she says, hey, it really sucked that you were drunk last night and you're hungover today. It's my birthday. Like, what happened there? And he just kind of mumbles, yeah, I was really drunk. Mm-hmm. And she says, while you were passed out, I went through your phone. Bad news. April, I love you, but don't do this again. Don't do it. When April went through Jake's phone, she saw videos of Ray, Jake's trial marriage, twerking, and close-up of her bootay twerking. And so what's funny is that April, in her confessional, she gets up and she's wearing heels and the short dress, and she gets up on the chair and starts twerking for the camera, and it's really funny. So I mean, yeah, she's mad, but it's also kind of amusing for the viewers. Our last recoupling is Madeline and Colby. The first night, Madeline and Colby are very happy to be back together. Madeline has been missing that physical connection. Colby is the one who gave her the ultimatum, and he's ready to marry her. So they're both very happy to be back together, and yeah. The next time we see them, Colby has gotten Madeline flowers, and he's very happy that they're back together. He says how hard it was for them to be apart. Madeline decides to say how Randall, her trial marriage, ticked all of her boxes, and so Colby gets a little sad about that because, like, he doesn't want to hear that. He wants to marry her. I don't know how much time has passed, but the next time we see Madeline and Colby, Madeline has gone through Colby's Apple Watch and has seen a lot of girls texting Colby during the time that they were apart during their trial marriage. She confronts Colby and says, why did you tell this girl we were in an open relationship? We're not in an open relationship. Why did you talk to this girl for 2 weeks? Like, what is going on? And Colby's excuse is that because he and April were forced together and they didn't actually have a romantic connection to explore, he was exploring this romantic connection with other people outside of the experience so that he could make sure that Madeline was the one. Yes and no. Like, I get it. I don't know. That's a tough one. Like, I see both of their points. Like, we agreed to do this experience together, but because Colby's interest lied in Lauren way back when, and she left because of her proposal with Nate. He had no choice but to pick April, and so therefore he wasn't able to experience the full experience with April, so he had to go elsewhere. I get it, but I don't know. That's a tricky one. So during this fight, Colby leaves, and he doesn't show back up for the entire night. So the next morning, Madeline confides in Ray about what happened with Colby the night before and how she found what she found in his Apple Watch, and that he left, and that she hasn't heard from him. During this conversation, Colby comes home hungover or still drunk. It's unclear, but he is not feeling good, let's just say. So Ray leaves because it's awkward AF, and Madeline wants to talk to Colby about what happened. He is just like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm tired. I can't. I'm doing my best. I'm so dramatic. She asks him why he did what he did, and with people not inside the experience. This is Biscuit. He says he did what he did for Madeline, for the experience. She's not buying it. She's like, it was just a hall pass. It's just an excuse. And he tries to explain that he wasn't getting the full experience with April. So he's laying there hungover or drunk, and he's being very patronizing and half-heartedly apologizing, saying, and Madeline is like, yeah, I'd be better without you. I'd be better off with somebody else who cares about me. And he's like, yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. What's that? What is that? So then it cuts to Madeline and Colby having drinks with Madeline's friends, who don't like Colby at all. Like, for real, we already know this. So Madeline is talking to her friends, and she's telling them essentially everything, how Colby was flirting / doing other things with other girls, and how he didn't come home, and how she's having a hard time with him. Her friends are totally on her side, saying Colby's a dick and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Colby comes in and is like, am I interrupting anything? And they're like, no, it's fine. Madeline says that she told her friends everything and that they want to hear Colby's side of it. So Colby tries to explain the same thing he told Madeline before. He's deciding to take a bath in my shot. Rude. So he tries to explain himself to Madeline's friends, and he basically says the same things that he told her. It's a lot to keep up with. However, even after he says all of this stuff about not finding the experience within the experience, he says how much he does adore Madeline and how he wants to be with Madeline and how he has from the beginning, and how he didn't find what he was looking for in any of the other people, random or otherwise. Colby gets upset because Madeline's friends are kind of ganging up on him and saying what a crappy person he is for trying to find out if Madeline was the one for him outside of the experience. So he gets upset and he is like, I'm gonna leave then. And Madeline's like, fine, get out, bitch. And Colby calls her a dumbass as he's leaving. I don't know. Anyway, Madeline's friends are not okay with it, the whole situation, and Madeline is rightfully upset about the whole situation. Colby leaves, and that is the end of episode 6. What's gonna happen? I don't have high hopes for any of these original couples, to be honest. They all seem to be fighting like immediately as soon as they get back together, so we'll see. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, shoot me a comment, and stick around for episode 7.